my name is Pete, and you're watching the P Life channel. So today is a really special day. This is the first time I met up with my buddy with his Wing GT3. A bit of a channel update is after waiting about 1.5 years, I picked up this GT3 Touring from Motorworks in Barrington. So thank you very much to Brian and Salman for that. I think it's cool to have both of these cars together. In this video, I'm just going to show some differences between the Wing car and the Touring. Particularly the interior aesthetics, then give a little bit of technical info, even though there's been a ton of videos, and then also give a little bit of driving impressions. All right, so here she is, 2022 GT3 Touring in chalk with black accents, black touring package, carbon ceramic brakes. Show you the inside a little bit. We've got the speed yellow stitching, carbon fiber bucket seats, as well as the carbon fiber trim. Got these OEM look and feel Pepita inserts from Classic FX out in the UK. The notorious PDK. So some of the differences on the Touring is that you get this embossed leather. You get leather on the door cards, you get leather on the steering wheel and the armrest. You also get these black door handles, black trims around here versus on the Carreras. I think the GT3 has that also. But yeah, very beautiful car, still no rear seats. The major difference, no rear wing. You have a totally different deck lid. The diffuser, however, is the same. As you can see, I have the Dundon exhaust on my car. It's street headers and ultralight titanium muffler. It's my buddy's Wing GT3, beautiful Carrera white. It's got the white wheels. We're Wiener cousins with the inserts. Obviously a difference in the deck lid in the back. This one has the swan neck, which generates tons of downforce. It's got two adjustable positions. It's just, I think, a couple screw, 4 screws over here. Absolutely gorgeous. He has a full Klein exhaust on his car with 200 cell cats. We both have the car graphic valve controller. Emotional support vehicle, baby. Also very beautiful spec. He has the silver stitching. As you can see, you get Alcantara in the Wing car on the door handles. He pretty much put leather everywhere. He put leather, extended leather. I did that too, but he also got these end pieces and the stitching by the chrono clock. He picked the correct transmission. Buenos dias, bitches. So welcome to the 992 GT3 driving impressions. Talking a little bit loud. This car is extremely loud. So I've had this car finished in the break-in period. So I have a little bit of seat time. Haven't done any tracking or any extremely aggressive back road driving, but have been able to liberally use the throttle and get the revs up just to hear what it sounds like as God intended, and also had some experiences with, you know, pretty fast corners, but nothing that's sustained or puts the car to the limits yet, which I don't even think I can approach, to be honest. So there's quite a bit to go over in this car. It's an engineering masterpiece, but really the main thing that can summarize it is that it's raw. It's something that we're not going to have forever, which is a shame, especially since there's increasing regulations and for emissions regulations, particularly in Europe, and also noise regulations. So naturally aspirated engines are going to be a thing of the past before we know it, unfortunately, probably in the next 5 or 10 years. So the fact that you can actually get a very, very high revving naturally aspirated engine that revs all the way to 9,000, which is insane, you know, we're very, very fortunate. As soon as you get in this car, you realize it's not normal. It's dominated by the engine and the gearbox. More on the gearbox a little bit later. The car is very resonant. It's, you know, the throttle bodies and all the mechanicals are right behind you. There's very little sound deadening. You literally hear everything. Porsche has engineered a lot more noise into this car than the 991.2. It never actually gets really, really quiet. You would think that when you put an exhaust on the car, it gets dramatically louder, but that's actually not the case. I measured the peak noise levels right here over the gear selector with the stock exhaust at 5,500 RPMs or 6,000 when the valve's open, and I hit 98.8 decibels. And this is completely stock. The sound under 5,500 RPM leaves a lot to be desired. That said, if you do an exhaust, it does take the sound up another level under 5,000 RPM, you know, where the valves are closed. And then on the outside of the car, you do notice maybe a 30-40% difference in volume. But actually, surprisingly, inside the car, kind of at peak, it was only 2 decibels difference between the Dundon exhaust and stock when you measure it inside the cabin. So in general, this is a loud friggin' car, which I guess is part of the allure and part of the experience. I can understand why they had valve operation up to 5,000 RPM so it can make it more livable, but honestly, the car is not necessarily designed to be a daily driver. I think they actually went a little bit backwards in terms of the rawness on this particular generation and the 992 generation. I think the 991 was a bit more livable, and they had the ability to get a little bit softer than this car, and a lot of that is due to the chassis and the steering and the front end. So everybody and their mother basically would be the first to point out that the major change, what really took this platform a step forward, is the double wishbone front suspension. A lot of cars have double wishbone suspension. So why is that a big deal? Well, on a car that has such high limits like the GT3, and was essentially a perfect car, except for a little bit of floatiness in the front end, and the fact that you had to drive the car a little bit more 911-y because the front end didn't have as much grip due to the lack of weight on the front axle, and that made people have to trail brake and do a lot of weight distribution in 911 driving. That is actually not the case. So on this car, you can actually feel the grip level for each wheel. It has so much grip, it tries to rip the steering wheel out of your hands, which is one of the challenges of driving the manual, in my opinion, in this car. It's very twitchy and darty. Not so much as, you know, a 997. I've never driven a 996, but not so much as a 997. But it's definitely one step less refined than prior generations. And, you know, for some people that's a positive, because not everybody wants the daily driver of the car. For some people that want to daily the car, that's a negative. Personally, I could never daily this car. The suspension is too stiff, even though it does have compliance over, you know, light to moderate bumps or road imperfections. When the conditions get more, you know, more rough, the road conditions, this car is insane. You can basically crack your spine going over bumps and stuff. The whole thing will jump if you actually accelerate over a bump really, really fast. You can actually get air, and I know somebody that did. Like here, we're going over train tracks. Because you don't have to worry about weight transfer as much, and you have a lot more grip and sharp turn in, the speeds that you can carry in this car are bonkers. Okay, on turns you don't have to brake as hard, and you look down and it's almost, you know, psychologically you get scared just because you realize how fast you're actually taking corners, and if you were in any other car you probably would be dead. In terms of the brakes are still very nice. I opted for the carbon ceramic brakes. I never drove the new steel brakes. The new steel brakes are the turbo size. So then you get 408 in the front, and but they have thinner rotors, and they're not drilled all the way through, which improves the performance. But in general, GT products are phenomenal. The way that the brake is, the brake pedal is servoed more race car oriented, which means you have to stand on the brake pedal if you want to get very firm performance, versus on other cars like a Carrera or a Turbo, it's servoed more. You get more of that initial bite with a little bit of pedal pressing. And I also noticed when I looked at the brake pedal itself, the stem of the brake pedal is carbon fiber. So you know, a lot of the car is designed to transmit vibrations into your body, adding to that fizz and resonance, and you know, the car just feels alive. You know, this is always a heated debate on the forums, PDK or manual. The bottom line is they're both absolutely spectacular. They're both extremely racy. They're both designed for the car to go extremely fast. They work the smoothest when you've got heat in them, when you know you're shifting extremely fast, and that is where you get the maximal enjoyment and the maximum experience from the gearboxes. Both gearboxes are, in my opinion, you know, best in class or equal to best in class, especially on the GT cars. And that actually goes for when you drive a non-GT product. Even though those transmissions are really, really nice and still actually could be considered some of the best in the world, they cannot hold a candle to the gearboxes in the GT products. Before I bought my Touring, which I actually spec'd with PDK, I drove my buddy's 992 Wing with a manual, and for me, because I'm not an amazing driver, I have a lot of experience with manuals, but I'm not, you know, a race car driver, and most of the driving I do is to get to where I want to drive. So having a little bit of ease and smoothness is still important, but I was shocked at how much effort it took to keep the flywheel from dropping the revs, because this new single mass flywheel is actually very, very light, and even though it smooths extremely smoothly when you're shifting quickly, you have to put a lot of work to drive the car perfect. As a result, Porsche has engineered a lot of electronics into the transmission, into the manual transmission. So in addition to the auto rev matching, they have a blip on the upshifts so that you do not drop your RPM because of the lightweight flywheel, and the clutch is extraordinarily light. The combination of those two things with, you know, how much the wheel, you know, moves around when you're turning the car primarily or when you're on bad surfaces, kind of shied me away from ordering a manual. That in combination with the fact that the PDK is extraordinary, the fact that in the 991.2 GT3 Touring you could not order a PDK, the fact that you can tell the car was kind of designed for PDK, those reasons pushed me towards the PDK experience in this car, and I have no complaints whatsoever. There are arguments for the manual. The manual is the last of a dying breed. Being able to get, you know, a manual transmission and a naturally aspirated engine that's high revving in the United States that doesn't actually have active gasoline particulate filters that you can still modify. A car that's not overwhelmed by electronic systems, even though the amount of electronics in here is stupid. You know, those are all very compelling reasons to get the manual. But if you are looking for, you know, full race car in your balls experience, manual is probably the way to go. However, for me, I wanted to also try to experience the car at the limit, possibly on track, without having to worry about, am I gonna fucking grenade my engine? Am I gonna, you know, shift from 5 to, you know, 2 or 5 to 1 or something like that, and spin it to the moon? And you know, when I go out with friends and they have like Lambos and Ferraris and we're on the line and they're crazy, just trying to keep up with these fools with the manual is very difficult. You're working up a sweat, but you're working your ass off in that car. The gears are a little bit longer, which is very good because it's a little bit less shifting, a little bit less work. I think that's actually good for the single mass flywheel setup that they have. But overall, I just wanted to get something that was much more convenient. The PDK was the way to go. Other reasons for the PDK, in my opinion, in terms of driving experience that are often overlooked, is they sound totally different. The PDK, first of all, allows you to do that donkey kick where you hit both paddles, and basically lets you, I mean, that's crazy. You can kick out the tail end. It has a very unique sound when you're shifting through the gears and downshifting, that bah, 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 and it has the cracks, like a big whip crack. The speed of the shifts is incredible. The fact that you can shift Ken Block style still with a stick, and it's in the correct orientation where forward is a gear down and backwards is a gear up. Just like a race car should be. The PDK gearboxes and the Carreras and turbos were all ruined. So now they also have the eighth gear in those cars, which I think further ruins it because it's too many gears. So being able to get a racing inspired or a calibrated, a very aggressively calibrated dual clutch with a shift lever with 7 gears that's very, very light, that at least in the GT3 also can creep a little bit when you give it a little bit of gas and not kind of whip you back. That's not totally jerky, and it's actually very, very smooth, and it doesn't unsettle the car. I don't know how long we're going to have that opportunity. So that's my long-winded rationale for getting the PDK gearbox in this car. So when you compare this car to, let's say, a 911 Turbo or a Carrera, the major differences are the interior noise level, the directness of everything. All of the inputs are super direct. The car is welded to your spine, basically, especially if you have bucket seats. You can feel the vibrations in your feet through the floor. You can feel them in your hands. You can feel them in your butt through the bucket seats. You know, everything is resonating into the car. You feel the bumps. You can actually feel the entire chassis flex. I'm feeling stuff in this car that I've never felt before. I'm feeling which wheel has grip, and I'm not a talented driver. I'm feeling which wheel has grip, front or back, through my butt and my hands. I'm feeling when the car loads up, the car is actually loading up really early in the corner. The other cars don't load up like that. So it feels like you can actually steer while you're turning, and you can drive the car inside the lane while you're turning. I'm still not used to it. So it's literally able to modulate the grip limits even at much lower speeds, or, you know, when you're not at 9/10 or 10/10. So just that connection to the road is, I think, what separates this product. In addition to the glorious sound, in addition to you know, the lightning fast inputs, particularly with the gearbox and the steering, and the noise. All right, so conclusions on the 992 GT3 Touring and GT3 wing car. It's freaking spectacular. For sure, one of the best cars, if not the best car I've ever driven. Is it going to be the best car ever? Who the hell knows? Probably not. Porsche always makes them better and better and better. But I will say this, it's gotten to the point where it's crazy enough for me. It's probably crazy enough for 99% of people. And the next question is, what would it take for me to get a GT3 RS? I think the GT3 RS is going to be, unless you track, for my use case, forget about it. It's going to be either the same engine or have like 20-30 more horsepower, less streetable, more clunky transmission. It's going to have the picnic table in the back, and I don't know, to be honest with you. It would have to be a very, 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 very special change to the powertrain or something, or announcement by Porsche that they're not making these things anymore, for me to consider getting out of this car into an RS. So everybody, thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for coming along on a wonderful day, cruise with one of my good buddies. And please consider subscribing, giving us a thumbs up. We pretty much do this for free on our spare time. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out by email or Instagram or any of that. I always like discussing cars and meet a lot of interesting people through the channel. Take care.